Hello everyone, welcome to session 3 of module 5, Test Progress Monitoring and Control. In this session we will learn about test progress monitoring and several control activities. So what we'll learn about the techniques and metrics commonly used for monitoring test preparation and execution. Then we will see about test reporting using test metrics. And the main topics that we will cover in this session will be monitoring the progress of test activities, then reporting the test status, and finally how to control the testing activities if something goes wrong in the test process. So monitoring the progress of test activities, after defining test strategy and plan, once you start the test execution, it is very necessary that you track what you are doing, what execution is going on day-to-day basis, what you are trying to achieve eventually. So tracking is very important once you start your execution. So it's not necessary, it's not only specific to the test execution phase. Tracking is kind of important in the complete software testing lifecycle. While you are designing your test case, while you are developing the test case, while you are doing execution, tracking of activities is very important in each and every phase. But during test execution, this has its own importance because during test execution you are collecting all the execution data based on the test passed, how many defects raised, how many defects got fixed. So all this data needs to be tracked so that you can report to the stakeholders what the exact outcome of the test execution is for that specific phase. So test monitoring is a test management task which tracks the test progress and keeps an eye on how testing is progressing. So this test monitoring activity is a test management task which basically checks how the test is progressing, how the test execution is going on, how everything in the test life cycle is going on. Then reports are periodically prepared that compare the actual result with the plan. So in the test monitoring, there are continuous reports being generated which compare the plan with the actual so that you can find out if there are any deviations from planned versus actual result. So test progress monitoring can be done based on different metrics like test executions done, how many test cases have been executed, how many among those passed and how many among those failed. Or it can be done based on defects, how many defects open, closed or in progress. So test progress monitoring, these are kind of metrics that you can capture while test execution is going on. So based on test cases, based on defects raised, you can collect all these metrics, and once you are reporting the test summary report, you can combine all these metrics into a report to give a fair bit of idea about the test progress to the stakeholders. Then test progress monitoring technique varies depending on the preferences of testers and stakeholders. Depends on needs and goals of the project or the regulatory requirements. So test progress monitoring technique will vary depending on what the stakeholders want, what they want to see in the test progress report or test summary report. If there is any regulatory requirement that needs to be fulfilled, then your test progress report or test summary report will be different for that. So the test progress monitoring technique depends on certain factors. So what is the purpose of test monitoring? test monitoring provides feedback to test team and test manager. How the testing is being progressed, how testing is progressing in the software testing life cycle. So your test monitoring activities give feedback to the whole team where we stand today as in software testing lifecycle while the test execution or all test activities are being progressed, as well as it gives fair bit of idea to test manager and other stakeholders as well. It provides visibility to project team about test results. So other purpose of test monitoring is that it provides visibility to project team about the testing that is done in the project. Then it measures the status of test execution against the exit criteria defined in test plan. The other purpose of test monitoring is that it measures the status of test execution against the exit criteria. So you monitor the test progress in STLC and then monitor whether that progress has fulfilled the exit criteria, whether the criteria that is mentioned as an exit criteria in your plan has been met with the test execution, with the status that you get after doing test monitoring activities. Then you gathering data for use in future test estimations. So that's another purpose of test monitoring. You gather the test monitoring data which is used in further test estimations. So suppose you did some estimation in release A, you did some test estimation for doing a test execution of 100 test cases. You did an estimation of 30 days and you were able to finish all those 100 test cases in less than 20 days. So the estimation was not proper in this release. I mean, you were able to do the execution well in advance as compared to the estimated time. So this data that you have got after test monitoring, that you were able to finish the testing 10-12 days in advance, can be used in future test estimations of further test cycles. So test progress monitoring metrics. So common metrics used for test progress monitoring are total test cases prepared. That's the very common metric. Then how many test cases have been run till now, how many test cases have been passed, and how many have been failed. So these are some of the metrics which you capture on day-to-day basis in software testing life cycle. So once test execution starts or the testing activities start, you capture these metrics on day-to-day basis. Then you capture total number of incidents raised in the test cycle, how many of them have been fixed, what was the planned effort for suppose executing 100 test cases, and what is the actual effort that you have put to execute those 100 test cases. So you capture all these metrics. Then what is the percentage of test environment completed? Suppose that there will be some effort required to complete the test environment setup where you will do the test execution. So you can calculate that completion into percentage. That's another matrix. Then extent of the test coverage achieved in terms of requirements or risks or code, etc. So the test coverage in terms of requirement or in terms of risks or in terms of code coverage that you have achieved with the test cases that you are executing. Then what is the status of testing, for example, test analysis, design, and implementation. So all this status is also monitored by test progress monitoring metrics. How much test plan has been created, how much analysis has been done, how much design has been complete, and how many test cases have been documented or implemented till now. and how much more time is required to document all the test cases. Then any subjective level of confidence testers have on the product. So that's another metric that can be used uh, to make the release decisions basically. So for example, if tester says that yes, if he is confident of the quality of the software, that's his own level of confidence that he can give to the stakeholders, then stakeholders also can take that metric as a decision making point to do a release or not. Then reporting test status. So reporting test status is about effectively communicating test monitoring findings to other project stakeholders. So once you find the test monitoring matrix, then you just do not make a note of those metrics and keep it. You have to report those metrics in a proper way to the stakeholders so that they can understand what's going on in the test life cycle. So reporting the test status is about communicating those monitoring metrics effectively to the project stakeholders. Then test status reports help project stakeholders to understand results of test cycle and ensure if exit criteria was met. So based on the test status report that is provided to project stakeholders, they understand, they are able to understand what the status of the test cycle is and whether exit criteria has been met or not. Then it also helps stakeholders to decide the project release decisions. So based on the test status report, stakeholders make release decisions for the project or the software. If the test status report or test summary report says that exit criteria was met, that was defined initially, and all of the points in exit criteria have been met and it is good to go, then stakeholders can make decision to release the product in the market. If the exit criteria has not been met based on the test summary report, then they will delay the release decision. Then IEEE 829 standard test summary report template. So there is a IEEE 829 standard test summary report template, which includes test summary report identifier, then what a bit of summary about the test summary, a bit of summary about the project, then any variances, then the comprehensive assessment about the project, and summary of results, what results have been seen while in all the test life cycle or in test execution cycle, then evaluation based on the results, and then summary of activities, and finally the approval of the document. So this is basic test summary report, IEEE 829 test summary report template. So based on different needs and requirements of the organization, so organizations have modified test summary report according to their needs and requirements. So there are even one-page test summary report because stakeholders do not want to read all 50 pages test summary report document. So it depends what kind of software you are testing. If it is, it has to follow all the standards and it has to follow all the process, then you might be required to deliver a 20-30 page test summary report based on the complexity of the project. But if it's a simple project, then stakeholders might want a single page summary report which just contains the number of test cases, total number of test cases, how many passed, failed, the number of defects raised, how many were fixed, how many are still in progress, whether the exit criteria was met or not. So based on certain monitoring findings, you can have a test summary report which suits best for the project requirements. But the standard test summary report is the one that is from IEEE 829. And let's see an example. So in case of risk-based testing, major criteria for test reporting is to subject the important product risks with appropriate extent of testing. So if you are doing a risk-based testing, so what will be the major criteria for test reporting? The major criteria for test reporting will be that you subject the product risk with appropriate extent of testing. So if feature A was the highest risk feature in the product, then that feature you have to show in your coverage report that that feature has been tested thoroughly with how many number of test cases and what percentage of defects have been fixed for that feature. So in this table, if you see, so suppose if you're doing a risk-based testing, you can have a template and divide the functionality product risk areas based on the risk. So suppose functionality, performance, security, interfaces, compatibility. So based on the risks, you have identified these are the high risk areas, and you have planned some test cases. You have some planned test cases, and then how many actual test cases have been run, what is the percentage of test cases still that need to be executed, and what are the outstanding defects against these functionalities. So this risk-based testing report, a simple report or table, will help the stakeholders to decide what is the residual risk in the product, what is the residual risk in the different risk areas or different modules of the product. So test control is about bringing the project under control in case of any diversions. So you have done the monitoring, you have done the reporting. So after doing a monitoring activity, so you just do not keep monitoring in the test life cycle. If something is going wrong in the life cycle, there has to be some control which can control these diversions in the test life cycle. So test control is all about bringing the project testing under control in case of any diversions in the project. Test control is a test management task in which you apply corrective actions to get the test project on track. So in case something is going wrong in the project, you are not able to achieve what you planned for, then you take corrective measures so that you can deliver what you planned for within that specified, within the planned date or planned schedule that you had initially. Then examples of test control activities. So for example, there is a e-commerce website which when initially launched, there was a set of performance tests that was being executed every night because there was no traffic or activity during the night for that e-commerce portal. But suddenly it became popular, and there are a lot of end users started using that website 24 on all 5 days and 24 hours. So in that case, you cannot have a downtime for the site during the weekdays because it will affect the revenue of the company. So in such scenarios, you need to reschedule the testing to some other time slot which is free or when the traffic is minimal. So initially performance testing was executed every night in the weekdays. So rescheduling the test to weekends solve this issue. So that's one control activity that can sort out these issues, because you have to do performance testing, you cannot avoid it, but you need to reschedule the testing to some other time slot in case there is some issue with particular time slot. Then suppose if there are defects, there are a lot of defect fixes that you are getting from the development team, and those defects, when they are being retested, are found that they are not actually fixed and the problem still exists. So in this case, rather than developers fixing those defects and directly coming back to testers and again getting back opened, the best thing is to taking measures so that developers themselves verify those defects first thoroughly before releasing it into the test environment. So that will save a lot of test effort and time in retesting those defects and again reopening, and so it will save a lot of that effort. Then suppose there was a module that was expected to be released today, but somehow that module has been delayed, and module XYZ has been successfully developed and is ready to be delivered and can be delivered today. So reprioritizing test execution. So suppose test team was supposed to start execution of module A today, but module A has been delayed. Instead of module A, there is another module that has been the coding of which has been finished and can be delivered today. So you can take that module, test team can take that module and reprioritize the test execution for the module that is ready today, and can push the test execution of the delayed module further. Then in case release date cannot be moved and lots of tests need to be executed, then you need to have more resources to get the testing done. So in case there is an extreme time pressure and release cannot be moved, release date cannot be moved, then you need more resources. That's another control activity that you can take to release the software within time frame. So these are some of the test control activities that are required to bring the project under control in case of any diversions. So to conclude, in this session we learn about test progress monitoring and control. We learn about monitoring the test progress of testing activities. Then we learn about reporting test status and the standard template, IEEE 829 template for reporting test status. And then finally we learn about the controlling of test activities in case of any deviations from planned activities. Thank you.